This is Sherry. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us, Vaughn?
Yes, sir.
All right, good deal. Thank you.
Okay, talk to you later.
All right, thanks. Bye.
All right.
How are you? Good. How was your holiday?
I thought he was an airplane.
I recognize that voice. I recognize that voice. Just doesn't work. Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Devin Allen, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation today will be delivered by our own Fire Marshal, Randy Winois. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Lord, we thank you for the sunshine and the beautiful day that you've given us today. We ask, Lord, that you'll calm the winds and bless those today that are ill. We pray, Lord, also that you'll give us the guidance and the wisdom for this court today as they meet, that the decisions they make, Lord, for this county will be strong and will be firm. And we're always grateful for them and what they've done for our county. Bless us this day, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Thank you, Randy. Tremanius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, just a few comments on the agenda. Once again, we're going to go ahead and move Mr. Tenazia's presentation up to the front when we get to the administrator's section. Everything else is pretty much, we're going to run the agenda then pretty much as has been laid out. I would like to give you a report of what we've been doing for the last week as relates to going live with the jail management software. You might recall that last Tuesday, about 10 o'clock, we began the conversion of data from the mainframe into the new JMS. We went live on Wednesday morning, and we have been live ever since. We are now in a point of stabilization. It looks like the software is operating just fine. If you were to ask me on a grade level what we would give this, not only implementation but the software, it would be a very strong A to an A+. We've worked with the Sheriff's Department, IT, and our office, and TechShare, and it has been really wonderful to see how the collaborative effort has occurred down in the booking area and in the confinement area. We were down there all the way even through Saturday, working on various things, and there are a few glitches that we're working through, which is typical for stabilization of any major software. This software is much more complex than any of the other pieces of software that we have developed through the TechShare program. We believe, though, that it's going to be very good. It's very sound. Understand that there are not many of any really good software pieces that run big county jails, and this is one, and it works very well. I know, Judge, you were down there the other day when we kicked off, I believe, Wednesday morning, but everything is going fine. We have gone through a learning process. Understand we have up to 700 jailers or detention officers that have to learn the system, and it was really good to see that, especially Saturday morning, where you had people coming on to shift. They may not have known exactly how to use the software, or just simply forgotten. And the collaborativeness between the jailers and the command staff was really excellent. So I want to thank personally and publicly the Sheriff's Department. Chief Eckert was the lead on there, but there were a lot of people there. Our ITD department, we were all in the war rooms, and we worked very well together. The TechShare staff were here on site, and also members of our office, Jeff Nicholson and Chandler Merritt, they did an excellent job. And not only bringing it live, but working through the process of developing the software, being great team members with all the other partners. So you can chalk this up as a success.
It
Thank you.
sounds like a very successful collaborative effort. I would just like to ask the sheriff if he agrees with the grade of A for this effort.
So you know my job's on the line now.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I absolutely agree with everything that GK just shared with you, but more plainly is our executive chief, Charles Eckert, who is our point of the spear on that. I'd rather let him tell you exactly some of the things that we went through, but it was an incredible collaboration.
Excellent.
Good morning, Commissioners. How are y'all?
Good morning.
I had a COVID test this morning, so everything I'm doing is allergies right now, and I apologize. Everything Mr. Mena said is absolutely correct. I give this a high A. In my wildest dreams, I would not have believed that we would have been as stable and processing people. We had some hiccups on the very first thing when you turn the software on. It wasn't even a software issue. It was the fact that some of the people that had been processed in the mainframe, the next day you turn it on, and so there was that hiccup. We backed some people out and processed them through Take Share Jail, got off the ground. The bond desk, the other morning on Saturday morning, we processed 60 bonds in about 3.5 hours. We've never been able to process bonds that quickly. We are going to get a lot of efficiency. One of the things we're having right now, we have officers that are on evening shift with COVID that are coming in on midnight shift that have never done the job at midnight shift, so they're having to learn additional jobs. Once we get trained up and we are have a lot more experience in the system, I will tell you that I could not be happier, I could not be more satisfied with the support from TechShare and IT. This is a big plus for us, and it is a good, strong system, and I think the citizens of Tarrant County got exactly what they were going to need. So,
well, I want to thank both of y'all. Chief, I want to thank you for getting into this and just basically saying we're gonna get in there, we're gonna be ready to go live on January the 11th, and you followed through and did that. And Sheriff, your support I appreciate very much throughout this process. The two of y'all have really, in my mind, guaranteed or was what made it successful. So your support, your energy behind it has been very welcomed.
Well, thank you, Judge. And I may say on behalf of Chief Eckert and myself, we had to take a little bit of extra blood pressure medicine last week. It was absolutely the perfect storm. Our COVID numbers spiked, TDC shuts down, we were changing shifts, and so the people that were trained, a lot of the people that were being shifted around, as he said, hadn't seen the system. So it was absolutely the perfect storm and of a lot of different things, but we came out on the right side. It worked out because we stayed patient, stayed the course, and it was great teamwork and great leadership.
Well, certainly I thank you, Sheriff, and you, Chief Eckert, for the collaboration, but none of this certainly would have been possible without the help of the IT department.
Absolutely.
And while we're handing out praises this morning, I don't want to ignore the very Herculean effort that IT has put into this thing since the beginning of the process. And it works because you all worked together.
You're exactly right, sir.
Commissioner, every single meeting that we were having with TechShare while we were working through these last few months, Chris, Russ, Mike, Malaya, all those people were right there with TechShare. We were all in the room together. We were all working out these issues together, and it never would have happened if we had not been a team, and that's what we got.
Jeff and Chandler Merritt.
Yes, absolutely.
We're in the weeds making it happen.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like Apollo 13 coming back in. The Eagle landed. We did good.
To list everybody, it was like a movie credit to list everybody that had a hand in this, and it took everybody working together to get this done. There's a lot of people out there that did a great job.
Well, thank you all.
Since we were kind of in this area of making announcements, any other announcements that any court members would like to make at this time?
Yeah, thank you, Judge. I do have one announcement. So as many of you may have recently learned that the University of Texas at Arlington received its Tier 1 status, which is huge, not just for our county, but for our region, but for our state. And so next Tuesday, I would like for y'all to join me in recognizing UTA for their Tier 1 designation. Dr. Lim will be here, and I'm going to ask that if you are a MAV or if you want to celebrate with us, that you wear blue and orange. We will have refreshments and photos in 504C at 9:30, and then of course a recognition during court. I know, Judge, that you're an alum, so I know you'll have on your blue and orange.
I will.
I am as well. I know that we have a ton of folks within the county that
I
are.
can handle blue, but blue and orange?
Yeah, orange is a good color. It's very in this season, by the way.
All
So-
right. We'll
Yes.
see what we can do.
So we will be sending out an email with the details, but next Tuesday, January 25th, wear your blue and orange and celebrate celebrate UTA achieving Tier 1 status. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I have some.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead. After you,
I just
Tariq.
want to thank the city of Colleyville and all those that were involved Saturday from the law enforcement side and the absolutely extraordinary job they did in getting those hostages out and stopping that situation. And last night there was a community-wide service, and they had hundreds of people that showed up for that. And I just want to thank all those that were involved, and pray that nobody else has to go through that anytime soon. It really brought a community together in a lot of ways. So thank you.
And the interdenominational collaboration that went on in supporting the congregation and the hostages and their families, and supporting the entire community was just phenomenal.
Yep.
Congratulations to all.
It was quite a day, you're right. And the fact that everybody, that all the hostages were able to get out safely was even more so. Everybody worked together, and I think it's a perfect example of that feds, the state, local can all work together when it comes down to it, and politics doesn't get in the way of it. So it was a great day and a great.
As long as us politicians stay out of the way.
That's right.
It just
Exactly.
kind of works out.
Those people had trained at that synagogue for that type of situation in the past. And they feel that had a major part in how it ended. And they stayed calm and welcomed the man that came in on them, and kept him talking. And that was the key, keeping him.
And I will remind you that the rabbi is one that we bring down
Yes,
every year in election. That's where Neil Strassman
yes.
Yeah, that's where Neil went.
went to worship, and
We've all been experienced to Rabbi
Yeah.
Citron Walker.
he's very, very well known. Any other comments, any other announcements? Okay, then with that, court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of January the 11th.
Move approval.
Second?
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. We have a couple of resolutions and presentation today. Commissioner Allen?
Yes, thank you, Judge. Well, I am beyond honored to recognize a Precinct 2 constituent who has been a member of the Tarrant County family for many, many years. We are familiar with seeing him in court on a regular basis. He helps to keep an eye on things around here with other of the members of the Sheriff's Department. But it's Deputy Howard Kotarski. So he is retiring, and I'm going to read this resolution and then very joyfully present it to him. So, whereas Howard Kotarski was born and raised in Queens, New York, and has spent 48 years in law enforcement. And whereas he started with the New York Police Department in 1972 as a patrol officer, he showed me pictures. It was pretty cool. And later was promoted to sergeant. Then he moved to Hobbs, New Mexico Police Department in 1979, working as a training officer, fleet supervisor, and crime scene investigator. And whereas he moved to Arlington and became a Mansfield police officer from 1986 to 1992, working in patrol, traffic, a crime scene investigator, and fleet supervisor. And whereas in 1992, Deputy Kotarski became the Tarrant County Sheriff's Office's first security deputy and worked at Juvenile Services as a bailiff for the 396th Criminal District Court, the 325th District Court, and the 96th Civil Court. And whereas he received his Texas Master Police Officer certification in 1994 and is an emergency medical technician, firefighter, and been a member of the TCSO Honor Guard for 29 years, proudly escorting the 9/11 honor flag from DFW Airport to the Texas State Capitol. And whereas Deputy Kotarski received over 40 awards and recognitions, including the Honor Guard Deputy of the Year in 1999, and for apprehension of an escapee in 1993. And whereas Deputy Howard Kotarski will retire on January 31, 2022, after having faithfully served the citizens of Tarrant County with pride and in the highest tradition of public service for 30 years. Now therefore be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, do hereby commend Howard Kotarski for his years of dedicated and invaluable service to the citizens of Tarrant County and wish him well in retirement. In witness whereof we appear to set our hands and cause the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 18th day of January 2022. And with that, I move for approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
I want to thank everybody for this. I think everybody knows me. It's a little bittersweet. I have a wife who has Parkinson's, and that's basically the reason I'm leaving. Everybody with a family for me. I enjoy working here. We had bad times and good times, but we all went through it. And it has to come to an end sometime. And I just thank everybody, and I had a good time here.
We appreciate you very, very much.
Thank you. And if I may, my court is here with me. There's Judge Gallagher.
Judge.
There's Jennifer, who's our coordinator, and of course Reggie Butler, our famous court reporter. And where's my sergeant? And Sergeant George. He's helped me a lot and got things going, and I've worn many, many hats, and as you see, I'm glad. So thank you very much for the service.
Deputy Kotarski, I have seen you weekly for years, and I never knew you were a New Yorker.
Yes, sir.
And it's amazing to me to realize that you started as a New York City police officer after my college days in New York.
We could have talked about that. Thank you all again.
Just shows how old I am.
Thank you again very much. Commissioner Allen, I believe you have another one.
I do. This is for ratification, but I did just want to mention that Sarah Jackson is the new president of the Texas Lyceum, and I believe we've got some directors in the Tarrant County family, but I will be presenting this resolution to her tomorrow. She's got many things to celebrate, and including her role at the Lyceum, where she will be serving as the first African-American woman in the 40-year history of the organization. So with that, I move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Next is a presentation of a best practice, and I'm going to call on Chief James McLaughlin. He is the General Counsel, Executive Director of the Texas Police Chiefs Association. This association is determined to advance and improve law enforcement through Law Enforcement Best Practices Recognition Program. Chief McLaughlin retired in, I believe, 1998 as Chief of Police in Addison after 28 years of service in law enforcement. He holds a Master of Peace Officer Instructor Certification, Commission on Law Enforcement Office Standards and Education. I'm going to turn it over to you. You're going to probably tell us a little bit about this award. We are very fortunate to have several cities within Tarrant County who have received this award, two of which I see Chief Noakes back there from Fort Worth, and Chief, I'm going to get this, I hope I'm going to get this right, Manashagan? Yeah, well, that's about as close as I could get. Lake Worth, but we've had a number of other cities, Grand Prairie, North Richland Hills, Colleyville, Mansfield, who have received this. Again, they're police officer association. So please take it away, sir.
Well, thank you, Judge and Commissioners, and particularly to Criminal District Attorney Wilson. Thank you all very much for being here. Sheriff, good to see you again.
Good to see you, sir.
And we'll get you on this list one of these days. Well, thank you. Texas Best Practices for Law Enforcement, created a number of years ago, and it really identifies those areas that cause agencies most problems. So we've got a little less than 180 of those. We have to have policies on those, and how do you do them. So the agencies come to us and say, okay, we want to do that. So they start sending in their policies on those 180 or so, and they are approved or not approved and sent back. And once all that is done and all the policies approved, there is an on-site, usually about a 2-day on-site, to kind of double check. And there are things that you have to check on in person to see if those are really in place. And that was done. It's been done almost 200 times. And Fort Worth, as you mentioned, is the largest agency that we're proud of to have in the program, and coming up for re-recognition, I think. The thing is that, Chief Barbara Childress, I'm sure that most of you know, was, if she's not the first female police chief in Texas, she was one of them. I don't want to age her, but it's been a while. We've been friends for 30 years, and she's been a mentor for that long. But there's another first today, and it was mentioned that the Criminal District Attorney Office of Tarrant County is the first district attorney's office to be recognized. And that takes a lot of effort. And like everything else, it starts at the top. And with her support, and then the support of the staff, and all the people that are involved in it, it affects everybody. And that has happened, and we're very proud that we can do that. So it is a good process. We hope more people get into it. It's not easy, as we've said, but it is very worthwhile, and agencies, not every agency completes it. They will start into it and say, we just can't get there. Yeah, they can. They just got to have the leadership and the support from council, commissioner's court, those kind of things to do it, and it can be done. So we appreciate that, and we have
At this time, I want to call up our Maria Hinojosa, Chief Investigator, Kyle Gibson, Assistant Chief Investigator, Mo Brown, Assistant Chief Investigator, and Barbara Childress. Program Manager. And Sharon, I want you to come up also. So y'all get your pictures, turn around there and let them get the pictures with you.
All right.
You have a license to operate that camera?
Barbara's ready now. I'm gonna do one with a real camera. That was an accident. Okay, here we go. A little closer. Perfect.
Now, wait a minute. Now we're gonna let the other photographer get a picture. Now, would someone from the group that just, Maria, would you like to say something?
We're just so proud to be the first district attorney's office in the state of Texas to receive this award. We all worked really hard, and it took some time and some effort, and with an amazing boss like we have, the support, we got this done. Great team, great effort. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will move that we receive and file this presentation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Court members, you have before you the consent agenda.
Move approval of the consent agenda. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Manius?
So members of the court, if we can now go to the briefing item, we're going to ask Mr. Tenasia to come forward and give his update on issues concerning public health.
Thank you. Good morning, Your Honor, members of the court. Back here again with our COVID briefing. That's kind of the topic still taking up most of our time. So quick update. Some of these slides will get updated today with the dashboard updates, but as you can see, the trend is still up. Up note, the chart on the top left-hand corner, we're at about 40% positivity rate still, and we're starting to see a little bit of a sort of a plateauing happening. So hopefully that will start to appear on the charts. Hospitalizations are still up significantly, but we were higher and we've kind of eased back a little bit. I think we're in the high to mid 1,400 range and we're back down to about 1,363. But still, we're at about 25%-ish of Tarrant County hospital capacity consumed with COVID.
Speak to the pediatric situation.
Yes, sir. On our report, we have 59 kids in the hospital. I think we saw a report. I have not caught that on the NIC track, but the media was reporting that Cook Children's on one day was full with almost 70 kids. We did not catch that on our surveillance report. And then ICU capacity, I know you had asked to keep an eye on it. We're about 50% of ICU capacity taken up by COVID, 223 people in the hospital.
Good.
And then the chart next to the map here, it's kind of right in the middle is the cases per 100,000. It's showing a little bit of an outdated number right now because the data is going to update today, but we're at 1,426 or 1,400 something per 100,000, 1,454, there we go. So that's about 1.4% of Tarrant County population coming down ill last week with COVID. Now the R-naught, this one's a little outdated because again the numbers are going to get updated, but I think the latest number today is going to be 1.26. So it seems to have slowed down, but we expect that to sort of go back up and down a little bit till we stabilize and then start going down. But seems like we're at a topping pattern. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. So let's hope that it stays true that way.
The thing that is most striking to me this morning is that the entire
what is that, 17, 18 county?
Yes, sir.
Region is now red.
Yes,
You've
sir.
been coming in here with maps with various colors.
Yes, sir.
In the region. Now we're all red.
That's right. Yeah, we're all across Texas. We have high hospitalizations rate. So that's been a major concern, coupled with, reduced staffing and capacity issues. So it's been pretty tight for hospitals.
Vinny, before you move on.
Yes, ma'am.
So last week at the Conference of Urban Counties, there was a speaker who talked about, I guess, their estimation for how long the surge would continue, and they guesstimated 3 to 4 weeks. What are your thoughts on that and the projections that we follow?
So typically when we have surges with COVID, they last from start to finish about 2 to 3 months. This one seems to be a very fast moving. It accelerated real fast. And in other places like New York and in some other parts of the country, we're seeing a sharp decline following that upsurge. So we're hopeful that it happens here as well. Last 2 or 3 weeks was just a very rapid acceleration. Hopefully it doesn't go any higher. My best estimate, probably by end of January, we'll start to sort of feel that we're past the peak. But again, it's winter months, lots of other things happening in the community, a lot of large gatherings and all those type of things. So schools and colleges are opening. So there's a lot of things to balance to make a prediction, but currently the signs are by the end of January, we should feel like we're on the other side. That won't mean that the cases will, stop. It's just that we'll feel like there's a decline happening.
Sure.
That's our best guess at this point.
Thank you.
Prevention messages, again, remain the same. When the surge is on, layer all your protection strategies. Wear a mask. If you haven't been vaccinated, get vaccinated. If you are vaccinated, get your booster doses done. And then avoid any unnecessary large crowds. Again, all of these things put together give you the best protection when the surge is on. And as the surge comes off, you can start taking off some of those layers. Things like vaccinations will stay with you, but other things, you can manage around risk that's in the community. And then treatment options, again, things are sort of ebbing and flowing. We've heard some shortages on antivirals and also the antibody solutions, but those will normalize as the demand sort of starts to decline a little bit, and the supply comes back in. Things are going to be more in balance.
Benny, let me ask you,
Yes, sir.
before you switch to the next slide, just a couple of things, again, referring to the individual who spoke to our education conference last week. I guess the availability of vaccinations, is that still pretty available?
Yes, sir.
There's not
I've
really
heard
a lot of long lines or anything like that for the vaccination.
No, we have not seen long lines, but I have heard that various area pharmacies have appointment only, and that is to manage the crowds. And occasionally they run out of particular type, like if some pharmacy has a pediatric dose, they might be out of an adult dose. So we've heard those where a family went together and parents had to go to a different pharmacy, children were, so it's just.
But they're out there, they're just gonna have to maybe hunt for them a little bit.
Right.
Again, we have them on our website.
Yes, sir.
Now with tests, are we still experiencing some lines there on the tests?
So testing availability is there. It's just finding the right spot again, because if people go to certain large sites that are drive-through because it's convenient, you're bound to get some traffic because they're designed for large volume traffic. But if you can't wait in line or it's taking too long, certainly look around. There's other locations. Pharmacies have it. Different parking lots have these private vendors that set up little boxes. So there's plenty of locations that are in and out real quick.
Okay. Is there any way, I know that when we're voting, that you can look on the side and it can tell you where the lines are. Is there any way in your website that we could go to a situation of where we might be able to take the testing sites at least that we have control over and indicate what the lines might be?
I can look into that.
Check into that.
Yes, sir. It's a little bit harder with the testing sites, but I will check into that for sure.
And then you talk about the oral antivirals. Are the pills, and as I understand it, if you're come up positive for COVID, then there's a Merck and there's a Pfizer that are out there right now.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Are those fairly available?
Short supply, because again, they come in supply, and because there's demand, they go away. So we've asked our pharmacy partners to keep us updated, but it's not happening on a regular basis because it's just coming in small allocations.
Are those allocations coming to, you said pharmacies right there, but are they also going to the hospitals, or do we get allocations?
We do not. Public health is not in the treatment lane for COVID, so we do not get an allocation for that. But I would assume the hospital pharmacies are getting it. I will make sure to check with them to get you a firm answer. But the oral antivirals, I know for sure some area pharmacies have received it, and then they kind of quickly ran out of supply.
One of the other things that this gentleman that spoke to our group indicated was that this was very contagious, that he fully expected by the end of January, I think, that half or 50% of America would have contracted the Omicron or the COVID. And he suggested that we, at least try to prioritize maybe the vulnerable, the older adults, the ones with underlying health conditions, back along the lines early on that we saw when we were looking at the vaccinations, as well as some of that. Is that something, I know we have not really reached that point, or we've not done that thus far in Tarrant County, because I guess that's the testing, the vaccines, all of that is so much now out in the public's venue as far as the pharmacies. But has there been any discussions regarding doing that at some point?
For treatment, there are guidelines coming from the CDC. I think there was news today that a lot of that is prioritized, to go to certain groups. I'd have to look at the details, what they're actually putting out. But when there's a limitation on supply, that's when they start doing the prioritization formulas. Vaccine and testing, currently there's no limitation, so there's really no prioritization. Anybody who needs it can get a vaccine or a test.
Again, if you're an older adult, if you've got underlying health conditions, you should make every attempt to get the vaccines and the booster. The other thing he had mentioned was that booster is very important.
Yes.
Especially if you do get it, minimizing the chances that you would have to go to the hospital.
That is correct, yes, sir.
So our rate for those individuals over 65%, you don't have this in your slide deck, but it's about 95% fully vaccinated.
Yes,
sir. So we've done a really pretty good job on getting those 65 and over vaccinated in the county. So.
And again, like you just mentioned with the pills, since we're not in the treatment phase of this, most of these, trying to maybe prioritize the older adults, the ones with underlying health conditions, that is being done by the agencies, whether it be the pharmacies, the hospitals, whatever it may be, that are providing the treatment.
Actually, it will be the doctor making the prescription order. Okay. They'll have to look at that guidance and how sick is the patient and make a determination whether, when there's limited supply, do they qualify for that treatment or not. All right, so quick update on testing operations. As you know, the demand continues to be there, although it kind of ebbed and flowed as more sites have become open. As you can see, our vendor sites have done a lot of work, and so have our public health locations. Big numbers out there. I think just in the month of January yet, which is about half, there's been 33,000 tests conducted at the vendor locations and about 6,700 at the public health locations. So all in all, lots of testing done just through our efforts, and then there's a lot of partners and other private providers in the community. And talking about partners, a couple of new sites have opened. You heard one site that the vendor put out last week in White Settlement, that's going okay. And then this week at Arlington ISD, the athletics complex on Division Street, there's a entity called Nomi Health. Judge, you're familiar. They're open site in Dallas and in a few other places. They've opened a location there in partnership with Arlington ISD, and I believe they are scheduled to open one later this week. I think at Mansfield ISD at the R.L. Anderson Stadium. I don't have a confirmed date, but they're working with Mansfield ISD also to open that. And then, of course, FEMA is coming into town. Their site is launching tomorrow at the Choctaw Stadium in Arlington. It's the parking lot M, and I think there'll be a press release out with all the details on where to go and how to get an appointment, and, yes, sir.
For those people who don't realize what the Choctaw Stadium is, it's Globe Life Field. It's the
park.
old Ranger.
Old park, yes, sir.
The old Ranger ballpark, but
Yes,
it's
sir.
all there in that same general vicinity.
Yes, sir.
I think it was originally supposed to be parking lot F or M.
It's
maybe
parking lot M, yes, sir. So details should be coming out with a press release, but again, a lot of testing capacity coming to the area. Now with the FEMA site, I think they're going to stay open throughout. My understanding is 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., nonstop till February 8th. That's their current assignment, and then if the demand still is there, I think we'll make a determination at that point if they stay any longer or not.
Since they won't need those parking lots for the Cowboys anymore, they'll open.
Yes, sir.
Ouch.
So, I know.
Cowboys.
All right, so again, a lot of testing capacity in the area. Let's utilize it. If anybody feels that they have any symptoms, do not ignore it. Yes, it's allergy season, it's cold season, flu season, but please do get your COVID test done. I do recommend that people who are either exposed and are feeling symptoms, they should come first. There's a term I coined called freak out testing, and let me explain what that means, because we deal with this every day. So there's a case in our office, and everybody freaks out. I need to go get a test. Okay, take a minute. First, let's figure out, are you exposed? Have you been in close contact with that individual, within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes? That's when you're exposed. And if you have no symptoms, don't run out the first day. Wait 5 days. Wait 5 days to see if you develop any illness. At 5 days, it's okay to come out and get a test. And if you develop any symptoms any sooner, yes, absolutely. But don't freak out, because a lot of those folks are taking up a lot of testing resources, and people who really need it and then are waiting in line longer and getting real frustrated with long wait times at testing sites. So please, let's not freak out and get a test. Let's let the science kind of guide you on when you need a test.
Could you talk a little bit about the ability to order the in-home tests that the federal government is talking about? What is it, 4 per individual per month?
Yeah, so that website is supposed to be launching this week, and I've kind of heard bits and pieces of it. I'm waiting for the full launch and the rollout. What we know, though, is that we have a partnership with our FQHC, and they're going to get sort of a bulk shipment, because a lot of the federally qualified health centers are getting the other half of that allocation that the federal government bought up. So there will be a website for the public to go online, and like you said, each individual can order up to 4 tests. And then there will be the other side where they'll be prioritizing a push through the federally qualified health center. So we're hoping that we get our hands on some of that and help the FQHC distribute some of it. But details are yet to come. We don't have an ETA on when these tests will arrive in the community, so we'll find out some more. And then, as you all recall, Commissioner Johnson had asked for the county to look into buying some rapid tests for county employees also. I believe purchasing has an order in with the vendor. We're just waiting on delivery of those. So we'll know more as things sort of start to come to fruition. So quick update on the vaccine. Again, slow progress. It's been a little slower. I was sort of surprised that with this risk that came on, the reaction that we typically see in the community was a little muted. First, I kind of chalked it up to the holidays, but it is slower than where we would like for it to be. I think we're getting to the point where people who wanted the vaccine have gotten the vaccine. 1.15 million people have been fully vaccinated. That's about 60% of our eligible population. And about 320,000, or about 16% of the eligible population, has received their booster. And I keep pointing this out. There's a big gap between fully vaccinated and folks who've gotten their booster, almost 800,000 to 900,000 people. We need to get you guys out and get your booster doses done. A lot of data showing that once you get a booster dose, it does help you prevent serious illness. A lot of people can avoid hospitalization. Omicron, even though seems to be milder, there are hospitalizations happening just because the sheer volume of cases is too high. So let's not be one of those folks that have not gotten our booster. Let's get the booster dose done, and that will help all of us to keep our healthcare system going forward. So that's all I have. Any other questions? I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Benny.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Members of the court, we can move to the administrator section. Mr. Schaffner is going to be doing items 1 and 2.
Good morning.
Good morning.
For agenda item number 1, we are requesting the receive and file of this week's COVID-19 recovery report.
Move to receive and file.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And one note regarding IEM's report, just a supplement to what was in the report. We have received over 5,000 responses to our survey, and that's for residents, businesses, and nonprofits, which was really incredible. And Ms. Camarino has done a great job working with them to increase that number. All right, so on to agenda item number 2. So first off, we're requesting on agenda item 2A, approve changes to the fiscal recovery fund budget. So we are requesting 3 changes this week. We're requesting, first off, that we're requesting 3 additional programs be created. First is and this is in blue, provide essential government services. This is a $10 million amount that would be in a new bucket of funding. This is in response to the Treasury's final rules over the FRF funding, which allows for a government entity, in lieu of doing the revenue loss calculation, to presume $10 million in revenue loss that we can then use for essential government services, i.e. the work that we do every day and come to work and do. So we would like to create that bucket of funding, and that's in focus area 1. The second item that we're looking at doing is to a program called Provide a Safe Environment. This is for $1 million. This is to separate out of the PPE program those expenses that we are incurring that don't really fit into PPE, such as masks or gowns or gloves, but more special disinfectants, special situations that we are finding just to keep our doors open and the public and our employees safe that just don't really fit within that. So to follow the federal regulations, we're asking to take $1 million out of the PPE program, move it over here just to separate out those costs. And then thirdly, keeping the workforce safe, we're requesting a $10 million program. This will be for the pandemic leave costs starting on October the 1st, and for any associated overtime in certain departments that are a result of folks having to take that, or employees having to take that pandemic leave.
You said effective what date, the pandemic
October
leave?
1st of this year, or October 1st, 2021.
Okay, got it.
So with the beginning of the fiscal year.
Okay, very good.
Move approval of, what is that, Section A?
Yes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And finally, on action item B, if we could receive and file the items that are on the agenda that are FRF funded, please. And those are in yellow on your large sheet.
Move to receive and file. Second.
We have a motion and a second. I know that one of the ones in yellow is the Moncrief cancer screenings. Dr. Augenbright is here today from that. I'm very excited, as I know Commissioner Brooks. This has been a big part of his emphasis and passion.
Absolutely.
And so we're excited about that. I
And
think this will make
Moncrief
a
has
big
been an
difference.
excellent partner over all these years.
Yes. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Russell.
Ms. Camarino is going to do items 3 and 4.
Good morning, Judge and Commissioners.
Morning. Item 3, we're requesting court's approval to certify funds for multi-year contracts under the FRF program. Our auditor, as you know, generally certifies funds for our current fiscal budget. The FRF budget is slightly different in that it is not confined to a single year, but it is a multi-year program. Therefore, we're asking court to acknowledge that contracts approved using FRF funding will also be, or the auditor will also be certifying funds for those contracts for multiple years.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item 4, requesting the court's approval to approve the voluntary reallocation of emergency rental assistance funds. These funds would be sent back to Treasury to be reallocated to the cities of Fort Worth and Arlington. There are more applicants in both of those cities than funds available. And so what Tarrant County would do is send a total of $15 million back to Treasury. Treasury would then reallocate those to the cities of Fort Worth and Arlington. That will allow them to continue serving residents in those cities.
Do we have a guarantee that if we send this money up there that it's going to do what we
So there's a process. Yes, sir. There's a process in place for that. So it's a two-part process. We send a form, a letter requesting the reallocation. We identify the grantees to whom we want those funds to be redirected. Each of those cities also submit a form to Treasury requesting those funds and identifying us as the transferor. So they match those up, and we will get confirmation from Treasury.
Why are we not able to just give them the money directly?
There's a couple reasons. So the reallocation process doesn't, when we send the $15 million back, it will actually decrease our original award amount. And so Treasury has to be able to track that. So instead of having people transfer funds outside of the Treasury process, they have us go directly through them. So not only does it reduce our award amount, but it reduces our expenditure thresholds as we report going forward. So there are a lot of things tied to that award amount.
Okay.
And so this is their way of ensuring that they know where the money is going.
Okay, that makes sense.
move approval?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, I do have one question.
Yes.
I want to make sure that I understand, and this can, information can proceed, I mean, I can receive it after today, but how is Arlington prioritizing the people that they have on their wait list?
I understand. I have reached out to Arlington and asked that question, and I'll be sure to let you know as soon as I get an answer.
Very good. Thank you.
Sure.
Any further discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Members of Court, I'm going to be doing 6, 7, and 8. And I'm sorry, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So we can go to item number 5. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve a subrecipient agreement between Tarrant County and ACH Child and Family Services for the Youth Emergency Shelter Program. This is a $75,000 program, and it is to fund 2 FTEs.
Move for approval?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I'm very supportive of this as well as anything else we can do with ACH, especially as it has to do with mental health. I know that they are looking to help do some, they're responsible for foster care in several counties within this area, really, and out to the west. But at the same time, I think they're interested in doing a lot of additional work in the mental health area for youth. And so hopefully, as we move forward, I've talked a little bit with Kristen and with Russell about, working with them and seeing if, as we move into the ARPA funds, see if we can't work with Fort Worth, with Arlington, with the other entities that are receiving ARPA funds to see if we really can't.
I'm very interested in mental health services to kids in our various school districts who have been impacted by all kinds of conditions associated with Omicron.
Well, and another thing that we're looking at as you know, NACO is offered to make us a pilot in what is called mental health first aid. And I know I've talked with Susan Garnett about that. She is very high on the organization that's doing that. I think you have partnered with them on other things, and so I'm very anxious. I know Ms. Glenn is working with, hopefully going to be working with NACO on making this happen. So again, this will be a pilot that we'll start off with, but it really helps people, I think, learn how to deal with folks that they come in contact or encounter in the course of their work.
And this program will be for our employees.
That's correct. That is correct. Any other discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And just for the court's information on the consent agenda today, you did approve an additional contract with ACH in the amount of $300,000. So members of the court, we can now go to item number 6. We're requesting that the court approve a subrecipient agreement between Tarrant County and MHMR as it relates to the Assisted Outpatient Treatment Program. This is a program that is run also through our probate courts, and it's an excellent program. It'll serve a total of about 400 participants.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion to second. Again, I'm going to add something else here, and it's a little, not necessarily related to this, but I wish that I had remembered this to make note of this while the sheriff was here. But I do want to thank Susan and her group. The Mental Health Jail Diversion Center is up and running, and I again want to reach out and thank you, the Sheriff's Department, and many other folks who helped make sure that that's gotten up and running. I think it's going to be a win-win-win for the individual, for the county, and for the police associations, police departments. And very excited about that and want to thank you and your organization.
From everything we've heard, it's going very well.
That's correct. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
So on item number 7, this again is a subrecipient agreement. This is between Tarrant County and UT Southwestern. It's the Moncrief Cancer Center. Well, you discussed it earlier. Staff is recommending approval.
Absolutely move approval. This is for screenings in underserved populations. Very big need for that.
Second, but with a request that for the community outreach portion, Dr. Argenbright, I definitely want to understand where you all will be locating in Precinct 2, and then specifically in the scope of work, it talks about multilingual educational materials. That's been a huge issue for us in the county. So I want to make sure that I understand what languages the information is being translated in, and also that it's culturally relevant. I know you all do this work and have been doing this work for years, but it's still such a big issue that as you all are doing the work in the community, I'd like to know specifically what that looks like in Precinct 2.
You want to come up?
Thank you for your question. The answer to the second question first, our materials will be published in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. But at the same time, we have an interpreter service so that if we have other dialects, which we inevitably will, that we will be able to engage with those prospective patients in their native tongue using an interpreter service. And that service is kind of on an ad hoc, just-in-time type of basis. There are professional organizations who actually do this.
Great, thank you.
So that's number one. Number two, I heard this morning that we have, we're going to interview 2 finalists for our community outreach people. We want to get those started as quickly as possible. There will be 2 community outreach people. So each of the community outreach will have 2 precincts that they will be mainly responsible for. We haven't really decided yet exactly how that's going to be divided out. As far as where they will be physically located, their main base of operations will be Moncrief Cancer Institute and, quite frankly, their homes, because we have so many people who continue to work remotely, but they will be traveling to different points within the precincts themselves. One of their first orders of business is to meet with the commissioners individually and the commissioner's staff, so that we can understand exactly where the commissioners and your staff feel as though that they need to go, who they need to engage with, who they need to talk with. And so those kickoff meetings, if you will be scheduled hopefully within the next week or two after we get these two people officially onboarded. So any follow-up questions regarding those two explanations?
That covers it. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Keith.
Anything
it's
else?
Always good to see you.
Likewise. That one's yours. This one's mine.
Get your tax information in. Get your tax information in.
What?
Get your tax information in. The old 1040 that we used to do.
Yeah.
Just be sure you get all the information in.
Is it October the 15th already?
Yeah, there's never a truer statement there.
Thank you.
We haven't voted yet.
Okay.
Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Good to see you, Keith.
And then finally, members of the court, on item number 8, this again is a subrecipient agreement. It's between the county and Workforce Solutions. It's an effort to expand the adult education literacy program, and we're recommending approval.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Ms. Tidwell?
We have one item we're asking the court to consider this morning, and that is to receive and file the auditor's report of the cash count performed and related at juvenile services, and you have attached the response from juvenile services.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Marvin?
All right, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
All right, so I have the approval of renovations for the Waldeer courtroom located on the 6th floor in the Tim Curry Criminal Justice Center at 401 West Belknap Street for Fort Worth. And so this is minor renovations to the courtroom. The 21 criminal courts had requested it. I did but Mr. Sugar did come to speak on this if you have any questions on this as well.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Move to receive and file the personnel agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Receive and file the personnel agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, and good morning. We have two additional items for the court. Item number 2, we're asking the court to approve a waiver of terminal benefits for Precinct 4. Commissioner Johnson is requesting a waiver of 141 vacation hours effective January 19th. We are estimating net savings to the Road and Bridge Fund of approximately $24,485 and some change. The rest of the details are in your court communique.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And our third and final item, we're asking the court to approve TO changes to CSCD. As explained in your court communique, the request is for 2 supervision officers positions effective 1/19. The request is made as part of the Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Program. These positions would be funded by ARPA funds, And this request appeared on the administrator's January 11th agenda.
Move for approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And Judge, I did want to relay to you your question earlier about the antivirals that are available, just a personal experience that we had in our family. I have a close family member who contracted COVID. Her symptoms are mild. She was vaccinated and boosted, or is vaccinated and boosted. I did encourage her to reach out to her doctor to inquire about antivirals. Now, the caveat is she's in Harris County, not Tarrant County. The responses she got back from her doctor is that they did have antivirals, but just as Mr. Tanasia mentioned, they were prioritizing those for cancer patients, elderly patients, and so she was not given a prescription for antivirals, but told just to watch her symptoms. As of this morning, I checked with her. She still has mild symptoms, and we're expecting a full recovery. So they're out there, but I think they're in limited supplies.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Lee, come on down.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, Melissa. Fine. We have 5 items for your consideration. The first item is an award recommendation for RFP number 2022-036. This is our annual contract for drug and alcohol laboratory testing services, awarding to the primary Courtroom Health Solutions and secondary Aver Health per contract terms.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
The second item is also an award recommendation for bid number 2022-041. This is our annual contract for automated external defibrillators, accessories, and bleed control kits, countywide, awarding to the various primary, secondary vendors listed per unit price.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
The third item is also an award recommendation regarding bid number 2022-043. This is our annual contract for mosquito control pesticides and products for public health, awarding to the various primary, secondary, and alternate vendors listed per unit price and discount from list price.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And the fourth item is regarding bid number 2022-049. This is our annual contract for Epson Mobile Link P80 Plus printers and optional pairing services for elections administration, awarding to 10X Software Solutions per unit price.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And the fifth and last item is a request for approval to conduct negotiations for RFQ number 2022-044. This is our annual contract for professional engineering and planning services for transportation services, awarding to the various vendors listed per contract terms.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any appointments today? There being none, then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. We have 2 remaining briefing items. Why don't we call on Hyder first, because then he can...
We were going to.
Okay, exit stage right, so, or left.
So members of court, we're going to go to briefing and we're going to take item C, Mr. Garcia.
Come on down.
Good morning, Your Honor, members of the court.
Morning, Hyder.
So I believe we wanted to give the court a briefing on a topic that's been sorry, I'm trying to get this to stay here. There we go. Okay. It's been out there being discussed in the public, right, in social media and that is rejections of absentee applications for ballots by mail. And so I wanted to walk you a little bit through where we are and how we got here, and then give you some numbers of it, basically. So back in the special sessions, all of them last year, eventually a bill was passed for a series of bills, but there's one specific one, right, SB1, that has a lot of changes to the code, to the elections code. And one of the changes it made was that it required that an applicant that wants to request a ballot by mail has to now include in the application the following information, and I'm reading from the code. The number of the applicant's driver's license, election identification certificate, or personal identification card issued by the DPS. If the applicant has not been issued a number described in Section A, then the last 4 digits of the Social Security number, or if you don't have either of those, a statement by the applicant that the applicant has not been issued a number described in A or B. So that is now necessary to be included in the application when a voter wants a ballot by mail. That means that the state had to put out a new form because those fields were not on the one being used prior to 2022. This is all state law that changed, and I'm telling you how the law changed and how that's trickling down to us. So in essence, there's a new form that has a section where a person requesting a ballot has to do everything they did before and then add at least one of those two numbers or check the box that says, I don't have either one of them. And so naturally, having the state put this new requirement on the form to add a new piece of information, you have a new possibility of error, which is you don't have that information or that information doesn't match what's on file. And so the not having it is straightforward. If you use the old application and you send it in.
Hold on just 1 second.
Yes, sir.
Are we having, you don't have anything?
I don't have anything. Yeah, no.
There's not a PowerPoint.
Okay, well, because our screens are going back and forth, and I just wanted to make sure we weren't down.
I think they're just setting up for the next one. Can I continue or do I wait?
You can continue.
Okay. So naturally, case number one is if somebody uses the old application or if they missed that field because they're not used to putting in their social or their driver's license, that application is going to be rejected because it doesn't meet the new state law. The other scenario is that somebody... Yes, sir.
If that application is rejected because of the absence of that information, is there any feedback to the applicant to let them know that the application has been rejected and how to cure the rejection?
Yes, I will get to that when in a minute. I'll tell you, all of them have the same response.
Okay.
The other scenario is that, let's say, when you registered, at any point in time, you fill out the registration form and you added your social, but you send us the form this time with a driver's license. We have no way to match it. That's going to be a rejection as well. And so in any case, whether it's because the information provided was not provided or because the information provided doesn't match what's on file, the person gets a rejection letter explaining why, and with the letter, a form, the new form, saying, here's a clean form, basically try again. So the basic message is, number one, if you don't have the newest form, contact us. We'll tell you it's on the website. We cannot send applications unsolicited. So if someone calls and says, you know, we have to at least hear from the voter saying, I want you to send me a form, because it's now, I believe it's a felony, if we send it out unsolicited. Basically, I can't do it.
Because that's the law.
That's the new law as well. Yes, ma'am, that's state law. But the state law is also at least explicit on when we send a rejection, we have to include the form. So those are going to go out automatically when they are rejected. But for anyone who has any doubt, the basic piece of advice is use both numbers when you fill out the form. If you don't remember, if when you registered whatever number of years or months ago, you put in your social or your driver's, just put both on the form. And as long as one of them matches, it's a go.
So let me ask this question. Let's say that nobody's ever asked before. If they're now asking and you're willing to accept either or, why is it if they've applied in the past and they...
Because some people may have only one of them on file. And again, if you registered using your driver's license and now you use the form using your social, I don't have a way to verify that social and I'm going to have to reject it. If you put both numbers on the form, whatever you use when you register should match.
You had to put one or the other on there.
There are very few people, and I'm sorry I don't have the number, I didn't think of getting that one, but there's a small number of people who don't have either on file. Now, they can use that third option that says I don't have either, and that's a match. You don't have either, we don't have either on file, and that's a go.
It's been a few years since I filled out that form.
Yes,
Right.
use both if you intend to vote.
That's
absentee.
not a
That's-
problem.
But that's the main piece of advice for everyone. Now, this is just step one, right? Because the law also says when that ballot is returned, the carrier envelope that is being used to send it back to us has to have the same information. So again, when voters get their mail ballot, the voters who request one get their mail ballot and the envelope, I would recommend just put both numbers in there so we don't have, maybe you use the driver's license on the application, but then the social on the carrier, we're going to have the same situation with it.
And you
Or
were saying, oh, sorry.
the best recommendation, the catch-all is grab a voter registration form, fill it out with both numbers, and send it back to us. And that way, both numbers are going to be in file, and this is not going to be an issue in the future.
So you're suggesting re-register?
Update your registration, yes. You can do that. You can do that. So for example, if I registered using my driver's license and I don't have a social, I can just re-register, update it, however you prefer to call it, put both numbers on it, both will be on file, and obviously not me, I'm not qualified for an absentee, but I think I made the point, right?
I couldn't tell you what number you have on file for me, or if you have a number on file for me at all. I don't know.
So what you're saying is under just about any circumstance, you might want to update your voter registration information.
Yes, to include both numbers. If you're a person for voters who intend to vote absentee, that's the best catch-all safeguard from this point on. Just make sure that your registration is updated with both numbers. So whatever comes to mind when you're filling a form in the future for an absentee ballot, both numbers are there.
Is there a website that people can go to and look up their voter registration and see what number you have on file?
No, because those are personal identifying numbers. By law, I have to keep those confidential. So the only way would be for us to interact with the person and verify. I mean, you have access to your own record, but I have to make sure I'm talking to you. Otherwise, someone could say, I'm Hyder, what's my social? And that would be I can't disclose that.
And you're having to provide the entire social security number, not just
the last four. I'm sorry if I
okay.
wasn't clear. Yes.
So
I'm
were
sorry.
you done with your explanation? Because if so, I have questions. So but I didn't want to keep interrupting you through your thought process. So are we good with questions?
Yeah,
then?
I'm
Okay.
good. I'm good.
Okay.
That's basically it.
So then because I want to make sure I understood you correctly. So if a voter sends in a vote by mail application and the application is rejected, then by law, we have to respond to them with a letter that says their application was denied.
Correct.
And then also, you said something else that we send along with that.
Included with that letter is going to be a new application for them to use.
Okay. What's the turnaround time for that?
Whatever time it takes to the post office to get it.
Okay. So it's dependent upon the post
Yes, ma'am.
office.
It's
Okay.
mailed out. It's mailed out to them.
Okay.
So if you send out the rejection today and you get the new form, well, I guess if you get the new form back from them, then at that point in time, they'll get the absentee ballot.
If the new form.
Has all the information that is necessary.
Correct.
I guess, and I should have asked the question more specifically, that the law does not lay out the amount of time that you, as an elections administrator, have to respond by?
It does.
Okay.
And I'm sorry it doesn't come to mind, but it's a short window.
Short,
And that's not new. That's been in the law before. I can't sit on a rejection
So that
for
part didn't
a number
change.
of days, right? I have to get it out.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. So then if a voter calls into the elections administration asking what to put down as they're completing their application, then you all are advising them to put both their driver's license and the last four of their social?
That would be the ideal, yes.
Okay. Okay. And then you all don't, I want to make sure I heard you correctly, we don't have any access to Secretary of State or DPS information to confirm I guess to Commissioner Brooks's point, to look up this information for them. If someone were to call, how are you identifying that I am who I say that I am, so then you can assist me further with this particular issue?
I honestly don't have an answer for you on that one. I need to talk to council today and say, if someone calls or wants to verify, how do we ensure we're talking to the person? Can we do it over the phone? Do we have to have something in writing? Do we have to ask them to come in? I don't know to what level we need to do it to make sure that we're doing what we need to do.
Okay. So then what does this mean for impact to you and your team and having to process this? And right now, what's our percentage of rejected applications?
So and these numbers are from Thursday. I know we had a batch of about 900 applications we picked up on Friday, and those are being worked on today, and I don't have those numbers for you today because of the holiday. But on Thursday, we had 137 rejections out of 181 rejections. That's
Out of 181 applications.
Rejections. About 75.
So I want to go back because you said rejections both times. Did you mean that on that date, you had 137 rejections out of 100 and?
No, I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. Let me try again. On Thursday, we had rejected 181 applications. 137 of those rejections were due to these numbers, lack of or non-matching.
How many had you accepted total?
I don't have that number, but I remember it was 40% of the applications that had come in had been because of the numbers. I'm sorry I don't have the number written down.
Okay. So when you say 40%, tell me what that 40% represents.
Of the total number of applications that had been received.
40% have been rejected.
Because of the numbers.
That's what I needed to know.
Okay.
And the third cause, which has nothing to do with the new state law, but since we're, here, and I'm sure it's a great platform to say it, is choose your party. It's a primary year. Make sure that, in that annual application you mark, or in that one-time application, if you want a Republican or a Democratic ballot, because if we don't have one, we have to reject it. We don't know what ballot to send you in March. That's the third largest cause that we have. Not relevant to this, but I wanted to just say it, so it gets out there.
So then, going back to with the vote by mail applications and your recommendation that if people intend to vote absentee, that they update their voter registration, and what's the last day to do that?
February 1st.
I know that we have a elections town hall coming up, I think the first week of February, which that will be virtual, but, I'm really concerned about, this is confusing, and people are confused, and I did see information on social, but I also heard from Precinct 2 constituents about it being confusing, so that's part of the reason why, I think it's good for you to be here today to lay it out. Anything else that you think is important for people to know, and really for us to know about the impact that this part of the law has on the elections administration?
Right now, that's the biggest topic. We are going to come around later in the month to make sure people see the new carrier envelope, right? People are used to seeing the yellow envelope, or, that came back to us. The state has changed that envelope. Now it's a white envelope with a purple stripe on it. We're lining up with best practices from nationwide groups like the Center for Civic Design and things like that. I think it's a great change, but there are a couple of details that people have to be aware of. And so we've had a lot, meeting redistricting, getting those certificates out, these new forms. We had to mail out, and I'm just trying to give you a little context of what's going on in our office. I'm not trying to play victim here, but
I understand. I asked.
We had to get mail ballots out Saturday to voters overseas. We didn't get the new envelopes until Friday afternoon, delivered to our office. So there have been a lot of things with these changes in the law that have been kind of photograph finish happening over the last few weeks. So now that we've overcome this one, we're going to focus on, okay, those mail ballot packets are going to start to go out. We're going to start telling people, hey, here's what you expect, what you're going to see. It is different. Pay attention to the new envelope before you send it back in.
when I go to vote right now, if I go to early vote or an election day vote and I don't carry my voter registration card with me, they ask to see my driver's license.
Correct.
Could that be an indication that what they have on record is my driver's license number? Or are they just trying to see something that has my name and my face and?
Correct. In fact, you can vote with your passport, your military ID, your gun permit, doesn't have to be your driver's license.
So they're not looking within that system that says, yes, he's a registered voter, and saying, okay, here's the driver's license that's on
No.
that?
The ID is just to make sure that you look like you are the person.
Okay. I was just looking for something that might indicate what I gave them
And
a
it's
long time ago.
Yeah, it's a long shot here to assume that. I think the good news, I've read some of the reports coming out, right? And it's been a little confusing. We just had our election law seminar, our midwinter conference with the Secretary of State, and a lot of discussion about how to handle these numbers happened, and a lot of clarification wasn't available to us until pretty much last week. But the good news is, I think we got it right off the bat. I've read about some other counties that have had over rates of rejection. For example, if you put both, let's say that you write down your driver's and your social, and you transpose 2 digits on your driver's license, we were taking first match is a go. Some counties were saying if both are not okay, we'll reject. And the state came out, that was part of what was happening on Friday, the state saying, no, that's not it. As long as one of the numbers matches, that's the person, and you move forward even if the other one's wrong. So again, the 2 numbers on the form, filling out the form completely is going to be the best thing. It's the better odds for anyone who might not remember what they did 10 years ago when they registered.
You now have to send out rejection letters. Obviously, you said you have to reject at this point. Is there a time frame that if they keep sending in something and it's not complete and you have to reject, is there anything that says, okay, after you've rejected them twice, you don't have to,
No.
You just keep on doing it until hopefully they get it right?
That's correct.
And then with regards to their, if it's rejected by the ballot board, now it's been taken out of your hands, they've sent a ballot back. For whatever reason, the ballot board, again, made up of 2 individuals, or the signature verification part of it, which is made up of 2 individuals of different parties. If they say, no, we're gonna reject this ballot. In the past, you didn't, in many instances, you couldn't, because of the fact you couldn't do it until a certain time,
correct,
they never got a rejection letter until after the vote was over and election was over. Now, you're required, if the signature verification committee rejects a ballot, aren't you required now to notify the individual and give them an opportunity to cure that as long as it was within a certain time frame?
That's another change. That's part of the changes that we'll be talking about when the ballots come back. But, and I'm sorry if my body language was inappropriate there when I smiled, because when you said the signature verification committee, what the change the state did on the law, they pretty much turned into a number verification committee. The state was clear last week in our conference. The numbers prevail over the signature. So as soon as your social or your driver's license matches, the signature committee pretty much is clear to go. And so, I've been referring to them as now the new number verification committee.
So Elmer's not gonna have to worry about whether he signs it Elmer or Bud next time.
Well, I mean, there is a possibility they may challenge it, but the actual words in the law, again, this is all new state law. Again, it's not an internal change of procedures on the department or the county. This is state law, new state law. Is that there is, if I recall, and I'm not a lawyer, so please correct me if I mispronounce or misquote anything here, there is a rebuttable presumption of that's the person as soon as the numbers match.
One of those numbers match.
That's it. And so that's one of the big changes. So just to put it out there so people who are looking to compare signatures understand that, let's see how the ballot board works, but they may be coming back saying the numbers matched and that was it. But a good change that happened in the law, people used to get those letters after the election. Hey, the ballot board rejected your carrier because the signature didn't match. And the reason they were sent close to or after the election is because there was nothing to do anyway. Once a rejection was made, it was final and that was it. And the way the law was written, once the rejection was made, you had voted. So if your ballot had been rejected a week before the election during early voting, you still couldn't go vote in person. That was it. You have history, you voted, rejected, game over, that's it. Now, the new law opens up a cure process for the ballot. And so the ballot board and the signature verification committee have to contact the voter and say, hey, this is not matching. And they have the authority to decide whether they send something via postal mail, a letter saying, Dear Hyder Garcia, your signature didn't match or your numbers didn't match. Here's your carrier back so you can fix it. Or if they feel there's not enough time for that packet to go back and forth, to reach out via phone and email. And since we're talking about recommendations, and I need to make myself the list of bullet points so we start hitting this right, make sure in the form you put in your phone number and your email, because if there is an issue, that is how you're going to be contacted with the carrier when the carrier envelope comes back to say, look, your numbers didn't match or your signature didn't match. You have whatever number of days are left to come into our office and fix it with the ballot board.
Did the state mandate whether the ballot board or whether the election department would be responsible for sending out or making that call?
The ballot board. We can't even, I know, I wish we could do a little more, but the way it was designed, because you're putting personal information that is to be confidential, your social and your driver's license, the carrier envelope, talking about the envelope, not the form, when the ballot comes back, that information is now under a tab that has to be ripped off so you can see what numbers are under, right? So when the envelope is traveling, your social is not exposed to the world. We can't even pull that tab. So if we get the ballot a month before the election and there's nothing under it, we won't know until 21 days before the election when the signature verification committee comes in and they rip off the tab and they say, wow, and yeah, that ballot could have gone out or we could have made a call, but we don't have. Our job is going to be to receive the ballots, check them in, inventory them, and wait for the signature committee to turn them over to them and let them do their thing.
And that's important because I think so many people believe that it's the election department that oversees and runs all of the counting of those mail-in ballots as well as the election day, voting totals. And in essence, it's really the parties that oversee that, and there is never a situation of where two members of the same party are validating either the numbers or the signatures or anything else from that matter. It's always, but it is the parties, not county government, the parties that do that and oversee that part of it.
I agree. I mean, if those critical decisions are always a party. Obviously, we as the elections department, we configure the equipment, we manage it, we maintain it, the operation side of it. But the crucial decisions about the election, validating signatures, validating applications, central count, provisional, deciding on provisionals, all of that's done by the ballot board.
But even to the end that you are, validating, testing and doing things, they are always present when that is occurring.
Yep.
And therefore, it's not done in a vacuum where it would be just your folks there, but it's always both parties, all the parties are invited, and the public is invited, I believe, to be there and transparent. And one of the things that I've heard mentioned and that I would like for you to consider is the possibility that when you do these tests and you set up this for the upcoming deal, that you might even consider Facebooking that or YouTubing it so that anybody who wanted to view that could have the opportunity to view that.
Okay. Yeah, we had public last week. Obviously, to mail out the ballots we did on Saturday for overseas voters and what's coming up, we had to finish programming and testing the system. The two-party, because it's a primary, there's actually two ballot boards, right? So there's a Republican ballot board and the Democrat ballot board, and each one of them, they're going to handle their own thing. So just to clarify,
That's right.
we talked about two. That's the general rule of thumb. But in the primaries, it's actually
general elections where there is. Yeah.
Right, and even for the municipals, we try to keep the same ballot board, so there's that balance. Even though it's a nonpartisan election, it's a partisan reality. But in March, there's actually two elections happening separately, right? So Democrats will take care of their ballots, Republicans will take care of their ballots, and it's a separate group of people, and you don't need one of each party doing this because they're all looking for their own interests, right, separately. But anyway, last week they were there, we did the public test, the 2 ballot boards were there, signing off on everything, watching everything, and we had a good number of people from the public just show up, candidates, just watching and understanding, which is a great thing.
Any other questions?
I'm just gonna double check right quick to make sure. I think that's all the ones that I have for now. Thank you, Hunter.
Thanks, Hunter.
Thank you.
Members of the court, we can now go to item B. This is the Facilities Master Plan. Mr. Reyes is here to address the court at this time.
All right, good morning. So I think I'm the closing act. So if the military taught me anything, is if you can't say it in 60 seconds, then you probably shouldn't try for 60 minutes. So just giving you a quick synopsis here before we start, while I have just 60 seconds, is that I'm going to be briefing you on the 2007 master plan. It's 2022, so we got 15 years. In 15 years, we've done a good job of following this master plan. That speaks volumes to the pragmatic approach, the process-driven approach that we've taken to this master plan. It's also set a baseline and a good formula for the for the future if we were to look at another master plan. And so again, I just wanted to preface it with that, but also to add in that we're near the end of what we called out for the master plan, and it's time to start looking towards the future for the next 10, 15 years. So again, I think that's less than 60 seconds, but so I just wanted to preface it with all that. Sir, is this thing? Okay. All right, so we have 3 key dates. The first one being 2007. That's when the downtown master plan was created, so that's what we'll be briefing you on. 2013, the master plan was updated to you in a briefing, and I'm here in 2022 just providing another briefing to you. So all this is a zoomed out, high-level work that we've done. In 2013, it was updated to you in 3 different buckets, levels of progression for the projects. The first one being completed work, the second one, work in progress, and the last one, future work. So that's just how I'm going to present it to you, again, not reinventing the formula that we have. So that first slide shows you the what we've done since as far as work completion is concerned. I'll let you skim over it. Of course, if you need any detail, we do have that, and I can provide that to you afterwards. The last space plan kind of renovation that we did was the community development office space. You'll see that right below the administration building. We moved the community development department from I think they were above the Pancake House, and then now they're at the Park Plaza. So they have a new space there. So that's very recent. And then going forward, we have work in progress, really is what it should say, is we have 350 Belknap, administration building, correction center, and criminal courts building. These are, by work in progress, I mean, we've engaged the AE firms, we've started a professional services contract, and we're well underway with these projects.
So right now, there is nothing in the old criminal courts building?
There is, and again, I can provide you the detail. We have the professional services. Yes, there is. There is. CSCD is in there.
CSCD is still in that building. So let me, if I could, just before we go any further. The way the plan worked was that I think we started in 2007. We did a downtown master plan, and every year it was a 10-year plan. And every year after that, I believe that probably in October, maybe November of each year, Mr. Phillips, who was a facilities director at the time, gave us a new 10-year plan. We just simply added another year to it. And what those plans call for was timing on how we were going to initially implement the 2007 plan. Also added some new features that the court had talked about, and then an estimate as to the cost for each of those improvements. What that did, it gave the court the opportunity to see over a 10-year span how much money was going to be, we were recommending to be allocated to those particular activities. So that's the document, I think our last one was either 2019 or 2020. You got that, and I have a feeling that that's part of the printout that we gave you all last week. So if you want to try to put that in perspective to what Marvin is talking about today.
Okay, thank you. There you go. All right, so here's the future work. Again, we haven't engaged the AE firms just yet with these, but they are well within our radar. So I've got 2 slides on those. I'll let you skim over this first slide here. The second slide, I want to draw your attention to a project that we have that I think will get us near the finish line for the master plan. And that's the last one that you see, Tom Vandergriff, renovate the 6th floor for Second Court of Appeals. So that's one of the big dominoes that needs to fall to be able to, if you see the Tim Curry Criminal Justice Center, there's a lot of different build-outs and renovations that we need to do in there. That's one of the big dominoes that needs to fall, and we're looking at no later than fiscal year 23 to request those funds to begin the planning with the AE firm on that. And so again, pretty much this slide here is going to, in a few years, these projects are going to be completed or well underway to be completed.
So I want to make sure that I understand, and I wasn't around for any of this. So you're saying that for the renovations of the 6th floor for the Vandergriff, that needs to happen in order for the Tim Curry stuff to
Right. There's right. Okay. Short answer is yes. So we have a shelf space over in the 6th floor that was already called out for this. So it's being that it's shelf space, we're not renovating a new floor. It's just shelf space, empty floor space. And so again, fiscal year 23, no later than, we're going to be requesting those funds to begin, the program phase of this project.
But one of the things that we are doing in the Curry building, there's always been a need to upgrade and improve our elevator system. And so we have requested from the city of Fort Worth for them to close and abandon North Lamar Street. North Lamar Street is a 1-block street that is between the Curry building and the big jail. And the goal was, and it's in the documents that we've given you earlier, that we would close that street and we would build an elevator on the exterior of the building and all the way to the top. And we would use that elevator for employees, not only just to enter the building, but also to move from floor to floor. We've got, and I think that facilities has already done this, and maybe not on all floors, but we are where it will be pushed into or punctured into the floors. They would go initially into a secure area, but those hallways that surround, that security perimeter that surround, they already have doors that you can't go into any of those other hallways. So that would provide that. You might remember when we talked about the ARPA funds that we'd requested $14 million to do that, and that was the cost of that elevator. As soon as the street closure and everything is being processed by the city. City manager has been positive about allowing us to do that. That would occur. That would automatically provide some relief on moving people from floor to floor.
Thank you. All right, so the next steps. I talked about the way forward for the next 10 to 15 years. And these are value-added items. Again, the baseline, the formula has already been created for the master plan. Pragmatic, strategic-driven approach with input from leadership. So the first thing is, as far as value-added, if we were to do another master plan, is to capture the 2007 work, what was called out, and that future work that you see, bring it into the master plan, the new master plan. The second thing is facility condition assessments. I had spoken about this in June. It's basically, I like to work on cars, right? So just think about a car. You look at the tires, you look at the structure of the frame, you look at, everything, and you ask yourself, should I plan for this building for the future? And most of the time, the answer is yes. There are some things that would probably preclude us from planning for those for certain buildings, but that's what the facility condition assessment would do for us, is provide us a reason as to if we should plan for the future for that building. Then it's capture new requirements from leadership. And then it's creating cost estimates with funding alignment roadmap. So what that means is, just like Mr. Manus just mentioned, is that there was a cost estimates provided, and it was a capital outlay throughout 10 years. So this value-added item here, what it would do is within the master plan, we'd already have those cost estimates, and of course accounting for CPI or accounting for inflation, but we'd have those cost estimates. We'd have the space or the projects that are called out with input from leadership, but then the consultant would provide those cost estimates, at the front, instead of us trying to, go back and go with an AE firm and trying to figure out what, our capital outlay. So that would, again, that would provide a funding alignment roadmap that would take into account not only our general funds, grants that we may have, that we may think that we have, or in the future, and then, if needed, bonds as well. So the consultant would take all those into account, working with budget, working with you all, and provide a funding alignment roadmap for that. And then lastly, incorporate the suburban areas in the master plan. Again, I talked about this being a downtown master plan. With the way that we're working nowadays and being able to remote a lot better than we did back in 2007, there might be some value added in, or there will be some value added in looking at the suburban areas as well, whether we were going to hub and spoke certain services out, or again, the consultant would be able to help us out with that, and of course, it would be input from you all. And then I'll leave it open to questions.
So basically, this new survey you're looking for is going to take and look at the conditions of each building that we have.
Yes, sir.
So it won't necessarily be what department or what actual thing we may be doing to renovate or to do that, but what's the condition of the skin, what's the condition of the AC, heating, HVAC, those types of things.
Yes, sir. It'll have the input from the department heads, the elected officials. There'll be a steering committee that will be put together, but it's also taking into account the building as well. It'll look at the envelope of the building, the structure, just like I mentioned, a vehicle, same thing. And it'll tell us, does it make sense to provide or to look to the future for this building? Not only that, but also input from the department heads and elected officials.
Any other questions?
All right.
You did it in less than 60 minutes.
I think I did. All right, thank you all.
Thanks, Marvin.
That's all we have this morning.
We do have an audience participation that came in online. It is from a Tamara Hutchinson, and it is related to COVID concerns in the Tarrant County Jail. She also sent an attachment, which we will post online at this time, and that's where we are in that particular regard. With that, then we'll recess our open meeting. Proceed to close to discuss items exempt under section 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code, and 0725 if needed.
You've been doing it too long?
Well, no, he threw that 0725 in there on us a couple of months ago, and I hadn't gotten that into the scheme of things yet. What I'm gonna probably do is I'm gonna eliminate Having returned from closed session, there being no business to conduct at this time, we are adjourned.